Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz test postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 406. I had the white pieces kicked off with c4, and we get the English opening. And we get a fairly standard setup here. I go with knight c3, g6, g3. These are not maybe the topmost moves. The topmost moves a lot of times are just transposing back into a queen's pawn opening, which can be done at any time with d4. But I'm going for the English setup. And we get a pretty typical setup right around here. And so again, d4 would transpose into some kind of queen's pawn opening, or knight f3 would be a more typical way to play the the English here in this situation. But I'm choosing the third choice here, e4, going for a Botvinnik setup. And this is an interesting way to play. It appears to block in the bishop, but white intends to set up a really solid pawn triangle here, develop this knight to the e2 square, and just push on either on the king side or on the queen side, and keeping a solid center, and trying to grab space on one wing or the other, depending. So my opponent plays d6, continuing with the main moves, knight ge2, right here he plays an unusual move. He plays knight c6. Most common moves here are either e5 or c5. Black really needs to get some kind of stake in the center. You'll see that he gets into a bit of trouble in this game. And already right here I could take advantage of his kind of relaxed play by playing d4 and grab some space in the center. But I was still continuing with the idea of playing the Botvinnik setup. And the Botvinnik setup, the pawn goes on d3. But actually, this is a kind of an instructive moment, because it shows the importance of not just following your stereotypical plan, but looking at each position and seeing if you can get the most out of it. So d4 is just clearly a better move. I went ahead and castled first, and he played knight e5. And now d4 is not such a great idea, because it hangs the c-pawn. The knight here the pawn is under attack. And since I intended to play d3, that's what I go ahead and play here. And this is not a bad setup for me. This knight is a bit of a target. It's just that maybe the d4 move instead of castling would have been a little more accurate. But okay, so black continues with bishop g4. Looks like the best way to kick the bishop is with the move f3, which is the more natural looking move. Although I wasn't sure that I wanted to. I mean, this pawn from f3 is going to eventually push on to f4, but I don't really lose a tempo by pushing to f3 first, because it kicks his bishop, and the bishop will have to relocate. I decided to kick it with this pawn so I could play f4 in one move, but now he puts his bishop on f3, which is a move I had not considered at all. And probably the best way to deal with this is to go ahead and take it. I didn't think too heavily about this option, but if I take it, then I can, he comes in with the knight check, and I go king to g2. And it just chases the knight back. So his knight comes forward and goes back again. It's not like it's going to be a thorn in my side there. And I kind of gain a tempo in a way, chasing the knight away. So I just ignored it and played bishop e3, a developing move. And he decided to take at this point. So we get to a similar position. And I guess it's about the same. I did get one developing move in. So not too bad. And now my opponent plays h5. I think this is a mistake. Yeah, the engine agrees with that. I'm planning for a king-side expansion here and an attack, or at least that's one of my options. And the h5 move gives me an extra target. I can always push on with g4 now to create some weaknesses there. Okay, but I continue with queen d2. I have the idea of trading off this bishop first. This is an important defender over here. He goes rook e8, and now I put my bishop here, and he decides not to trade. But drops his bishop back. I could have played immediately with f4 earlier instead of doing the bishop move, but I do play the move f4 now, and it's still good. So at this point you can see, even though the material is even, the computer is giving quite a decided advantage to white. And it's just because I've been allowed to gain a lot of space. This knight doesn't have any great squares. He drops back to d7, and I pushed on with f5. Trying to bust open his king side a little bit. I have pieces that are ready to hop in. He goes knight back to e5, but he's wasted a tempo going forth and back. And I can kick it again with d5, which is a bit funny. It looks like I'm hanging the c-pawn. So here, let's explore this a little bit. d4 rather, kicking the knight. And if he grabs over here, is there a tactic that wins? Or do I just go queen d3, giving up another pawn, queen to b5. Oh, that is a kind of a funny tactic. This knight has no squares. Okay. Couldn't the knight have just retreated? Say the knight goes back here. Then f takes g6. Yeah, and I continue my kingside attack. So I guess it's worth sacking the pawn over here to be able to continue on the kingside. And then e5. Yeah, that. So I got the queen to the square d3 with tempo because I chased the knight away, and now it's looking at the g6 pawn here, and I'm attacking his knight. Yeah, so this attack is really breaking through. So the immediate d4 right here was possible. I played b3 to short my pawn. I was preparing d4. I had the idea of playing d4, and I didn't like the idea of losing the pawn. But as the preceding variation showed, I didn't really have to worry about that. My threats were bigger, so that's an important optimization. You know, don't defend against threats when you don't need to. If you can press ahead with the attack, and your attack is going to reach home first, you know, then you don't have to waste time with these defensive moves. Okay, queen to d7. Trying to get into position. Now I do play the d4 move, kicking the knight. Knight drops back to c6. And queen to g5. Now it looks like here, so I built up a terrific attack, and I really should have a win at this point. But I start not playing the best moves. So bringing a rook over, rook a to d1 is the top choice, or rook to f3 or rook to f2. Also, yeah, all five of the top moves are rook moves. Either bringing this rook into the game, which would be useful on one of these squares, C, D, or E, or lifting this rook and maybe doubling on the f-file are both better ideas. I brought my queen in, but this creates a little bit of a problem. It's kind of a bit of congestion here for the knight, for the queen and the bishop. And he gets to kick my queen right away, and actually the chess engine recommends retreating the queen right back to e3. I wanted to stay over here on the king side. I still had hopes of you know, going after this weak g6 pawn. It's just that this knight move, this knight h7 move, was quite good. Chases my queen off of this file, so I can't maintain the pressure on g6. I went over here to h4, and now there's actually an even position. The other thing about queen back to e3 is it would defend the d pawn, which has now just been lost. It's an unintended knight or pawn sack, and the bishop is supporting the knight there. So it's easy to miss that. The bishop retreats back into the corner, but still exerts an influence across this diagonal. And now not only has he grabbed a pawn in the center, but he's opened up that diagonal for his bishop, and you see that black is equalized here. So anyway, I continue taking here, still trying to disrupt his king side a bit, and then I move my rook out of the way. The rook, you know, I don't want the rook on the same diagonal with the bishop. There's this pin on the knight here, which is going to be a problem. So move the rook out of the way. I guess he was also threatening just to take this knight, and when I take back with a knight, grab my rook. So anyway, I move the rook out of the way. Not a bad move. He takes. I take back. And then bishop to f6, kicking my queen. So queen to f4, e5. Yep. So now he gets all these pawn moves in. I mean, we're still in the range of even, but I haven't I haven't got an attack anymore. I should be thinking about how to avoid getting into trouble. I drop back to f3. I would like to take on f6. It also, the pressure on f6 keeps his knight tied down, so I want to stay on this file. He plays bishop to g5, however, and that that immediately, well, I mean, it opens up this file, but there's no good square for the queen to come in on. That's covered by the rook, that's covered by the queen, that's covered by the bishop, that's covered by the pawn, that's covered by the pawn. So I would like to attack on this file, but I cannot find an entry point here. Maybe if I can get rid of enough pieces, something will open up for me. So anyway, my bishop is also trapped, so I have to take. He goes here. And now there's a threat on my h3 pawn. And no good way to defend it. In fact, the best move here is queen f6, going for the counterattack. So the these exchanges have opened up this this square on f6 for my queen. Earlier I couldn't invade, but now that the bishop is gone and the knight is off of h7, it was covered by 2 pieces a moment ago, but now it's free, and now I can invade and attack here. And this is only good for a draw, however. Queen takes h3, king to g1, queen to g4, queen takes g6. Yeah, and I think I go for a perpetual at this point. Yep. King h8, queen h6, king g8. Yeah. So there's nothing better for me than a perpetual in this situation. So anyway, that would have been, I suppose, a logical consequence of the game so far. I had built up a good attack, and then I frittered it away, and now I have to settle for a draw. Anyway, I played queen e3 instead, and this is just losing. I don't have the counterplay in this line. So he invades with his queen, and I start running away, but there's no good way to escape. I give up some material to try and survive a bit longer. And he trades off into this endgame. I keep on playing. It seemed like maybe I still had some chances. There's a passed pawn, and rook against knight. Well, with the extra piece, it's almost certainly winning. So I'll just go through the rest of these moves here. Not a whole lot is happening. I mean, I'm just trying to get rid of all the pawns. That's the other way to get a draw. If you can get rid of all the pawns, the rook and knight against a rook is probably not winning, not easily. But he's got enough pawns here that he can save them. And eventually one of them breaks through. And right here, after the move knight f2, chasing my rook away. Yeah, okay, it's a mate in 7 at this point. Yeah, so I could have given up sooner. Anyway, well-played game by my opponent, and taking advantage of my mistakes. After actually played the opening, got in trouble in the opening, but after that, after I made some mistakes and let him back in the game, then he played pretty well from then on. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.